Hello, happy Tuesday, everyone. April the 18th. I'm actually doing this as a little bit of a do-over for the video portion because the audio came out fine for the episode that I originally recorded, but the video was just honestly so bad. I uploaded a video about a couple weeks ago to the channel, and the quality was I tried to have it as a one-off. It's not good enough, so I'm not going to be using this. But for today's episode, we're going to get into a few Penguins tidbits from Elliotte Friedman's 32 thoughts, get my thoughts on those. Then we're going to get into the Penguins, my top offseason priorities that they need to have for this offseason. And then we're going to recap day one of the Stanley Cup playoffs and look ahead to how the games are right now for day two. That's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at @Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. You can visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Again, this is a re-recording just for the YouTube version. The audio for just Megaphone and Apple and Spotify came out pretty decently, but in terms of the video, way too choppy. The Wi-Fi, for some reason, screwed up again. Never really happens. I think I'm actually beginning ordering an extender just because it's downstairs. My PC is upstairs. So, hopefully for this one, it looks a lot better. But let's jump right into the first topic, which is, Elliotte Friedman's 32 thoughts and some very big Penguins-related topics. So we did see Brad Treliving get fired. Well, I shouldn't say get fired. Him and the Calgary Flames, they parted ways on Monday. I think it was really Treliving just didn't really want to come back. He had a sour relationship with Daryl Sutter. Obviously, people are going to be asking, what does this mean for the Penguins search? Could they go after him? I am personally not big on retread candidates. We've seen the Stan Bowman stuff. That's a hard pass. I think I've seen people even say Peter Chiarelli. I don't know how that even comes up. Brad Treliving, I think, did a fine job in Calgary, but he's not, that sexy hire that Eric Tulsky would be, or Sam Ventura, or, some of these other people that, Rod Rossi talked about in The Athletic for his first article for like the top candidates. He did as good of a job as he could have in terms of, moving on, from Johnny Gaudreau. He walked in free agency, trading Matthew Tkachuk, getting Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar back for him. But, Flames didn't really do much damage under his watch in the playoffs. I'm just not really super big on that as a hire. I would probably be okay with it, but I just don't think it's going to be like this godsend hire that's really going to help the Penguins throughout these next couple of years. That's really where I stand on that. But Elliotte did discuss in the 32 Thoughts podcast, one of the things he goes into is Mike Sullivan and, what this means for him. He said with a couple of days to look into it, I think him assisting with the transition is more along the lines of there's not really much experience among the remaining group as opposed to Sullivan gaining, Bill Belichick-like power. Because I do think some people were a little bit worried that he was gaining a lot of power, that the unlimited power, as Emperor Palpatine, says in Revenge of the Sith. But no, it doesn't look like that's the case. He's just assisting in the day-to-day stuff. He's not helping, picking his boss. That's not going to be happening here, people. But, he's going to be assisting, I think, in the exit interviews, maybe assisting with some of the restricted free agents, just some of the day-to-day stuff, while Fenway and the other top decision makers, they will go out and hire Mike Sullivan's boss. So, again, I expect Sullivan to say, but it looks like that's why, he's helping out in the day-to-day operations. And Elliotte also says expect the Penguins to cast a wide net. He even says Fenway doesn't know a lot of people in hockey yet. So this, I think, is about discovering who to meet as much as it is about discovering who to hire. He also told a very funny story about ROn Hextall. And let's jump into it right here. He says, ROn Hextall likes to keep his circle tight. He despises hearing players' names and trade rumors, but there's a demand for the new front office to be more collaborative. He's even told the great story. During at least one trade deadline meeting this year, everyone in the room had to put down their phones in the middle of it so nothing could leak. That's as funny as it is sad. That is like my mom taking away my phone as a kid in 6th or 7th grade for 24 hours, giving it back to me, but also saying, oh, hey, Hunter, you can't tell anyone the reason why you got grounded. That's basically what this is. He grounded his coworkers for literally no reason. It's just like, Ron, what are we doing here, man? What are we doing? You don't want people to get ahead of acquiring Dmitry Kulikov? You don't want people getting ahead of acquiring Mikael Granlund before he stunk for you guys? Just very, very, very weird behavior. I understand, you don't want leaks coming out, but, leaks are a part of the business nowadays, people. That is the world we live in for 2023. That's how it goes. I don't know how much more clear I have to be when it comes to that. So he can hate that all he wants, but he's also not here anymore. Also just a really odd story when it comes to that. Elliotte also says, even before the firings, the Penguins were committed to making more of a commitment to analytics. So they definitely be looking to talk to people at the forefront in places like Buffalo, Carolina, Colorado, Columbus, New Jersey, Seattle, and Toronto. So, though the names that pop up right away, obviously Eric Tolsky, Jason Karmanos, Sam Ventura, Tyler Dello, all those analytic names, Haley Wickenheiser, Alexander Mandrake, all people like that. So, without naming those people, Elliotte kind of did indirectly, because a lot of those people, all the people I actually just named, work for at least one of those organizations. So definitely looks like they're really going to be, going full into analytics. But also Elliotte said, I believe they'll also be talking to some up-and-coming former hockey playing executives. He said examples will be the likes of Sean Horkov and Steve Sayos and some others with a bit more experience. Really curious to see who they talk to for that. I don't know if that's for the GM job or for just the front office in general, but that has me really intrigued. Could it be a former Penguin player maybe? They've done some work with Sergei Gonchar. They've done some work with Matt Cullen. Could it be another former Penguin player? Really intrigued when it comes to that. Elliotte did then say it's also possible the Penguins asked the NHL about Stan Bowman's status. That's different from what he said on the podcast, where he said he expects them to ask. He said it's possible here. In my opinion, I don't think he's going to get an interview. I would kind of be stunned at this point. It's clear someone is talking about it, but I think it's more that just the agent wants to get his name out there and Elliotte's doing, a hockey man a favor. I don't think Bowman's going to be that big of a factor. That's just pure speculation, pure guesswork on my part, but I just don't think he's going to be that big of a factor, if you're asking me. He also says, the Penguins expect to look outside of hockey. Jeff Greenberg, who Rob Rossi had. And then he did get into the JT Miller stuff. He said it's like the white whale of reporting. We know it's a hugely complicated move, but at the base of it all, the Canucks made a huge ask. I believe 2 firsts and a good prospect was the ask. And at the end of the day, I don't think the Penguins wanted to go there. My thoughts on that, honestly, I'm fine. That is a massive contract that JT Miller would be bringing over. I don't think he is worth 2 first-round picks. And let's be real, the prospect was probably Owen Pickering. He's not worth that, people. I mean, come on now. That would have been ridiculous, in my opinion, had they traded 2 firsts, Owen Pickering and Jason Zucker. He's been rumored to be in that very complicated deal. I would not have liked that one bit. So as many L's as ROn Hextall took during his tenure as the Penguins GM, I think he did get this one right. And then finally, Elliotte does report, I believe the Penguins want to re-sign Jason Zucker. I just don't know if it's going to be possible. He played very well and will be wanted. My thoughts on that, I would like the Penguins to bring back Zucker, but I don't think it's going to be on their terms. It's probably going to have to be on his terms, because he's going to be looking for a 5-6 year term. I don't know if the Penguins will be able to stomach that. And people may come at me and say, well, Hunter, like, what about the Rickard Rakell deal? What about the Brian Rust deal last year? And sure, you can make a point that term doesn't matter, but I think it matters more in this case, because Zucker, he finally had a good year. Can you count on him to be this good, not just next season, but in the season after that, and the season after that, even as you're getting towards the end of the Sidney Crosby era? The final couple years probably won't matter as much, but I'm really looking at these next few years. Can you count on him, for at least for the first half of that deal, to be this consistent? Does he deserve a pay raise? In my view, a perfect deal for me, 2 to 3 years, maybe 4.5 to 5 million per. I think that's fair. If Zucker doesn't want to take that, which is his right, he deserves to get whatever he wants on the open market. he can go out and seek out another contract. But, Brian Russ, he took a pay cut to stay here. Rickard Rakell, maybe you can argue that he maybe took a pay cut to stay here because he had a very good year this year. And I think, with the year he had, he could be making more money elsewhere. We'll have to see if Jason Zucker wants to do the same, because I do think the Penguins want to re-sign Zucker. I don't know where they would be without him. But, the Penguins will also ask the question, can they replace that production via trade or on the open market? And I think they can. I think you can get 25 goals, 30 assists, on the open market or via a trade. I don't think that sort of player is super hard to replace per se. It's going to sound weird because I know how important Zucker is. I'm not diminishing that. But I think in terms of like a second line left winger, you can get those not easily, but it's not super difficult, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But that's the kind of deal that I'm looking at for Zucker. And, that wraps up this first segment of today's program. Coming up in the second segment, we're going to get into my offseason priorities, where I would rank them. And then to end the show, we'll get into night 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs and how night 2 is going so far. But that's, that will obviously be different by the time you listen to this. But before we get into that, we do have to discuss FanDuel, which is the official sports betting partner of Locked On. Grand slams, no hitters, and double plays are back, and there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now new customers get a no sweat first bet with up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, place that first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. So don't miss your chance to get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That is FanDuel, the official sports partner of Major League Baseball and Locked On. All right, I'm back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at Elliotte Penguins. And of course, thank you so much for making this your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms. Okay, let's get into it. My Penguins offseason wish list. I teased this a little bit on my Monday episode. I really do think the Penguins badly need to get another partner for Kris Letang, whether via its open market or via trade. No one in-house is going to be doing this unless you think Marcus Pettersson can do it. Okay, that's fair. He probably can because he's proven that he can do it. Who plays with Jeff Petrie? Assuming he's on the team next year, and I think at this time you can probably assume that he will be. Who plays with him? You need another top 4 left-handed defenseman regardless of whatever happens. I personally would like one for Kris Letang, and you can put Pettersson with Petrie because that pairing has proven to work. It's led the team in expected goals this season in terms of pairings, shot attempts, scoring chances, all that stuff, high danger chances, etc. So you can have that pairing, and then maybe you want to do Joseph and Ruda, but you still got to replace Brian Dumoulin. Is that Ty Smith from Wilkes-Barre? Probably not. I don't really know what their plans are for him next season. That's going to be a topic I'll be discussing it more in depth throughout the offseason. But I'm curious to see here. I think, I have my eyes on Calgary, Noah Hannafin, Rasmus Andersson, Nikita Zadorov. There's going to be other options, I'm sure, will be out there on the free agent market and on the trade market. They need to find a new partner for Tanger because, I know Tanger admitted he played his best years next to Dumoulin. I'm sure he'll say he played was well next to Pettersson, but he needs another Dumoulin-like partner who can maybe provide a little more offense. I don't think that need is being talked about enough when it comes to the Penguins offseason. They need another good puck mover in the top 4, someone who can provide more offense, play shutdown minutes defensively, someone who can really complement Letang well as he gets up there in age. Obviously, goaltending. In a perfect world, you want to get 2 new goalies, but you got to get at least 1. If you trade to Smith and you get another goalie to platoon with Jari, if you bring him back on a 1 or 2 year term, you can probably get away with that, especially if the goalie in front of him is a bit better. But if you can also move on from DeSmith, find a trade partner for him, let Jari go and bring in a replacement, whether it's via trade, if you can, and throw up all your assets at UC Saros or, sign someone like Frederik Andersen, though I'm not really sure how much that moves the needle. Again, in a perfect world, I would like to see 2 new goalies here because you can't be doing this tandem year after year after year. It's just not working. Jari, we know he has the talent. He just has to stay healthy. And I'm just not sure the Penguins want to commit to that for at least another season or two. I think they can probably get him on a discount. I mean, he's not going to, $4 million tops. I don't think he's going to command 4.5 or anything like that just because of his injuries. But, if they do decide to keep him, they need to get another 1A, 1B in there. That's better than DeSmith, because you can't be relying on DeSmith for another season. I don't care that he has one more year on this contract. I think that would just be really foolish for the Penguins. Outside of those two things, if Zucker walks, you need another top six winger. Again, it's not super easy to find in quotation marks, but I also don't think it's that hard either. There's usually top six wingers signed in free agency every single year. And players and teams also trade for them all the time. Heck, we saw Nino Niederreiter last year. He signed an absolute steal of a contract with the Predators. Someone like that, if they're available in free agency. Bottom six, I would like to see 3 to 4 new wingers down there. Drew O'Connor, I would like to see stay, obviously. I think he performed pretty admirably down the stretch. Ryan Poehling is a bit more tricky. I like him. I'm not sure how much the management is going to like him. He's an RFA. That's going to be curious. I would do all I can to move Mikael Granlund. If you can't attach a sweetener to that deal, whether it's a second-round pick, third-round pick, I don't think they would need a first. If you can't move him regardless, I think it's worth it to buy him out. They would get $4 extra million in salary cap space this season. Will it hurt down the road more? Yes, it definitely will. But I think it's worth it because he just wasn't a fit for this team. 21 games, 1 goal, barely any points, just did not fit Mike Sullivan's system at all. I think any competent manager that comes in will look at him and see how he played and just probably not want to bet on that asset heading into next season. And I don't think this is going to be another James Neal situation here where, he struggles at first and then plays his tail off the next year. James Neal was also a lot more younger when that happened. Granlund's in his 30s. That just really doesn't make much sense to me. So I would move on from him. I believe the cap hit this year would be around $933K, goes up to about 1.8 after that. And then I think with Jack Johnson's buyout, I think you're about a little over 2.5 million in terms of buyouts. It's not the best, but I think they would have to make do with that. It's like, how do I want to say this? It's like the last possible resort, I think, for Granlund, if you can't trade him. But, they need some new wingers that can play, Mike Sullivan style hockey, forecheck hard, just, running guns, speedy wingers / centers that can really just, I shouldn't even say take your head off, but that can just forecheck the hell out of you, play strong defensively, and of course, finish. The Penguins had a -21 goal differential in their bottom six when Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin were not on the ice this season. That is not good enough. That's, I think, the biggest reason why they missed the playoffs this season was because they had no depth scoring. You couldn't build a worse bottom six if you tried. That needs to change in this offseason. They have to have a much better bottom six. You're probably going to have Jeff Carter in there. Best case scenario, he plays like the way he did down the stretch on a fourth line role, getting limited minutes. You're probably stuck with that. I think 99% chance he's back next year, unless he can somehow ask him to waive his no trade clause. I doubt that happens, but they're stuck with him for the last year until he's gone. After that, I'm sure he'll just retire, to be honest. But, those are my big needs for what I'm looking for. Assistant coaches, I would cut ties with Mike Vellucci. I don't really think he does much of anything for the coaching staff. His penalty killing unit is not good at all. Tar Reardon, he might stay because I know the organization thinks a lot higher of him, but I also don't really like the power play that he's had the last couple of seasons. His work in the defense, I think, has been mostly okay. I thought Jeff Petrie would be a bit better, though. That's kind of been an L. Jan Ruda didn't really impress me that much. He always does good work with Letang. Dumoulin was a bit better down the stretch, but, I still want to see more out of him. I honestly would not be surprised if both coaches got canned by the new management. But if you're asking me, I would at least cut ties with one of them in Vellucci. And again, I would welcome a change in the assistant coaches so Mike Sullivan could have a different, fresh set of ideas for his next season. But in terms of offseason priorities, those are the ones that really jump out at me. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think should be the main offseason priority for this team and, second and third and fourth and all that stuff. Let me know down in the comments. You can send me a DM on social media and all that stuff. But that wraps up this segment. Coming up to end the show, we're going to get into the Stanley Cup playoffs and why night one was absolutely fantastic. But before we get into that, we do have to discuss Athletic Greens. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, we're resorting 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics to help you start your day right. The special blend ingredients support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy recovery, focus on aging, all of those things. Also lifestyle friendly. Whether you eat keto, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, also costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. They also have over 7,000 5-star reviews. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day, and that's it. There's no need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, I'm back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter, @ROn Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. And wow, the Rangers are just taking it to the Devils right now. Wow. 3-0 as I'm recording this. Not good. The Devils, I've been watching that game. They look out of their depth. Not a good performance to them. It honestly sounds like it's Madison Square Garden in Newark. The Leafs look really bad. Kyle Dubas has been on his phone. Is he getting some text from Fenway Sports Group? Let the speculation begin on that. But night one, what a night of the Stanley Cup playoffs it was. Some awesome games. We'll start with Bruins, Panthers. I like the way the Panthers played, but Alex Lyon, he still needs to play a bit better than that. I hate to nitpick on the guy because he's been awesome for them, but that Marchand goal can't go in. Panthers also need a little bit more offense. Kachuk, he can do all he can, but you need Verhage to step up. You need Sasha to step up. It's only one game, but they looked a little out of their depth going up against the best team in the league. For the Islanders, they can't score. That's been well documented. The Hurricanes did a tremendous job shutting them down on Monday. They need someone to show up. Now, Barzell's back. That's huge. He needs to show that he's, the superstar that a lot of Islanders fans think he is. The Pulock-Pelech pairing needs to be better. Sorokin, you know what you're going to get with him. He's a top 3 goalie in the league. He played his tail off in game 1. He's going to need to continue that if the Islanders have any shot of winning this series. But I also don't think the Islanders are that good outside of Sorokin. I think they're a very average team, decent top line, okay depth. Their top pairing's fine. I just don't think they're that good. I think the Hurricanes should be able to win this series. They've shown all season long that they can shut them down. Even without Stechnikov and Pacioretty, I'd kind of be surprised if the Hurricanes lost this series. Minnesota-Dallas game was tremendous. Seeing, the team that left Minnesota and the North Stars, aka the Stars now in Dallas, playing against the Wild, who, they had a team come back in 2000. Very chippy, very nasty game. A lot of, brutal cross checks from Ryan Suter and Kirill Kaprizov. Those I didn't like. I don't like that Matt Dumba hit on Joe Pavelski. I don't like seeing any players' brains turn into mashed potatoes on the ice. You definitely could have argued for a major on that hit, to be honest. I don't think it's, like a Rafi Torres or a Matt Cook-like hit, but I do think it was a hit where you could definitely argue that it was major worthy. But that's going to be a really fun series. Minnesota's trying to break that curse. Haven't won a playoff series since 2015. I expect that series to go 7. Ton of fun staying up late for double overtime. And then the Kings, what a comeback. Less than 9 minutes to go in the third period. They're down 3-1. They make it 3-2 with Kempe. Then Kopitar ties it to make it 3-3. And then they win it in overtime 4-3, take a 1-0 series lead over the Oilers. I'm kind of on the fence where I want to see the Oilers, win it all at the height of the power of Connor McDavid. And then another part of me wants to just see them lose in epic, heartbreaking fashion because I think Connor McDavid deserves better than part of the roster that Ken Holland has built for him, because outside of the top 6 and Matthias Ekholm, Evan Bouchard, there's really not much there. It's just the top 6, couple defensemen, and that's it. And I kind of think he deserves a little bit better. But, the Kings, they proved that they could play with the Oilers last year. They were very close to eliminating them in 6 games. They had that chance in LA. We'll have to see if they get that chance this year. They went out and got more scoring. It paid off on Monday night. We'll have to see if it pays off for the rest of the series here. But that's a must-win game for Edmonton in game 2. You don't want to go down 0-2. None of those teams that lost game 1 want to go down 0-2 because that's usually a pretty bad time. But it was still very weird to watch watch playoff games without the Penguins. It's been even weirder tonight, man. Been reading my book, having the games on the background. It feels weird because I love the stress-free environment that I have because I don't need to be, putting my hands on my head. Back in college, I would pace around my apartment and all that, but still, I miss it. I think you all miss it too. It's weird. It's really freaking weird. But hopefully they'll be back next year around this time for some playoff hockey in the Berg. But, that will do it for this episode. I apologize. For those who listen on audio, it's going to maybe sound a little bit more choppy. I did what I could with it. But for the YouTube video here, I am hoping that this sounds and looks much better than the one I was editing before. But that will do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching / listening. And I'll be back with another episode for you all on Wednesday.